Hey gang, this is Chad Castleberry and welcome back to Firechild Entertainment. Okay gang, here's the deal. A while back, a few months ago, I uploaded a training tutorial for After Effects on creating a look similar to the Superman opening titles. And since then, I've received hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of views and comments and questions and a few complaints, but not too many, all pertaining to that tutorial. And I realized as I looked through it that I was limited to 10 minutes. I had a very poor screen recording software. The video was very glitchy, looked pathetic, and it was just desperately time for me to redo it and improve the techniques. That's exactly what I did, and that's exactly why we're here today. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about. And there we go. As you can see, if you go back and look at the YouTube page, which you can look up, just search Firechild C, and you'll find it on my page on YouTube. This is a much better look, and hopefully the screen recording you're watching right now looks much better as well. Um, Hopefully those of you who had no idea what I was doing before, you bought yourself your clue, you've seen the movies. Uh, let's make Jarrell proud, huh? Let's go ahead and get started. Minimize that, make some space here. Okay, first thing we need to do is create a new composition, and to do that we'll click on right here on the Create New Composition button, and we need to make the background, so we'll call this Star Field BG. You can use any preset that you want. I'm going with NTSC D1 widescreen with square pixels. If you want to go HE, go HD, but if you do go HD, even in standard definition, know that your render will take an eternity with this effect. I'm talking a long, long time. So, I'm going to take that one, get Avi, because once you hit render, you're going to need something to occupy your time, or you're going to end up crying and pulling your hair out. The effect is very easy, very straightforward to do, but rendering it is a whole nother story altogether, as you'll see when we get a little further here. So let's go ahead and create our Starfield background by going Layer, New, Solid. Color doesn't matter, we'll label it Stars 1, I guess. Actually, we'll label it Base Stars, something simple. Make sure it's comp size, color doesn't matter, click OK. Now, two ways we can do this. What we need is to use a fractal noise effect. Two ways to do that. We can go Effects, Noise and Grain, Fractal Noise, and that'll apply it. Or, let me just back up a little bit, or we can go to our Effects and Presets palette here, type in Fractal, and just click and drag it on. There it is. This technique, or at least this part, has been done before. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm going to just kind of whiz through this very, very slow part. We need to take scale down to 2, which is under the transform tab right here. And then all we have to do is boost our contrast and kill our brightness until we find something we like. All personal preference, more stars, less stars. It's all up to you. I'm going to go with somewhere in between. So there we go. Nice, simple, bunch of white dots. Starfield. We can take it a step further. As you notice here, as we've got this kind of nebula, cloudish streak going across the middle, it just gives us something else on the screen for the eye to look at, something a little more eye-pleasing. Easy way to do that. All we got to do is take our base stars and hit Control D, or Edit Duplicate. Control D, Edit Duplicate, either one. And for our base stars, we'll rename it Star Cloud. Why not? Okay, so we've duplicated it, which duplicated the effect, fractal noise. And what we need to do is we just want it across the middle of the screen. So what we need to do, we'll turn off our base stars. We need to mask it out, select our layer, take our pen tool, click, 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 and close it. Now you notice we've got just a mask across the middle like that. You make it look however you want, completely up to you. Now what we need to do is we need to blend it in, turn the background back on, we need to blend it in. So we can see what we're doing. First, let's add a color correction. So Effect, Color Correction, Hue and Saturation. And at the bottom of Hue and Saturation is a little checkbox right here for Colorize. We'll click that, and now we can mess with the colors. So zoom in a little bit. Say you want red streak across, boost your saturation. You've got red stars. Kind of cool depending on the effect you're going for. I am going to boost my hue to about, somewhere in the 200 range, let's say 215, and give it a little more saturation, not too much, whatever works for you. I just want to give it a little bluish tint. So now we have some blue stars and our white stars, but it's very abrupt. There's a very solid line there. So what we need to do is, with our star cloud layer selected, hit MM. That brings up our mask parameters, and we need to feather it out. And when you start feathering it, you'll start seeing this line form, so you need to feather it a lot. Somewhere around 230 is good. So now it just spreads out, which is exactly what we want. But we can take it a step further and create this little cloudish nebula look. As you can see, now we've got some bluish stars. We actually boost the blue in it now. Some bluish stars, our white base stars, but now we need to give it that nebula. Easiest way in the world. What we need to do is create another fractal noise layer, but instead of resetting everything and going through all of that, all we have to do is highlight fractal noise and hit Control B to duplicate it, and we'll rename the second one Nebula Cloud. And the first one, just keep it all organized, we'll name it Stars. So we got our stars, our nebula cloud, and this will be our blue coloring. Okay, so back to our nebula here. All we have to do is go to our animation presets, and there's an animation preset in for cosmic power. You can create this on your own if you want, but this goes a lot quicker. So I'm going to click cosmic power, and we get this kind of really blurry, blackish, horrible looking little cloud thing. Okay, we don't want it to move, so an animation preset automatically creates these keyframes right here. So we can go through and turn them off. Just turn those 3 off. And then at the bottom, change our blending mode from normal to screen. And that brightens it up. And you can grab your evolution here and just click and drag until you find something you want. Now, you don't want, you could if you wanted to, depending on how sci-fi you're going or how abstract you want it to look, but I'm just going to give it just a little bit. Maybe something like that. Just a little bit to break it up. That looks kind of cool. So our background is in place. We're ready to keep moving. Next thing is the effect we've all been waiting for, the actual Superman effect. So we create another new composition. We'll call this one Super Text. We want to make sure it's NTSC D1 widescreen, or whatever preset you used for your star field. You want to keep it the same here. 10 seconds long is fine. Click OK. Then we can take our handy little text tool right here. Click it, click out, and type our text, Firechild. Now, I did this once before, so the text is already set up. Yours probably looks more like that. So you've got your text, and what we need to do is we just need the outline, so we can click this double-headed arrow right here in the corner, swaps the fill and stroke, and if yours is more, I think you would probably end up with something like that if you haven't messed with the text, we can dumb it down to 2 pixels right here. This is for the width of the stroke. There we go. And that looks pretty good. What we can also do is change the color of, that outline. Any color you want to use is completely up to you, but I would say stick to slightly darker colors. You don't want to go into really bright colors because that'll make the echo effect look kind of funky later on, as you'll see. I'll show you as we go. Okay, so there we've got our base text, and that's actually what we'll label it, base text. And what we need to do now is we need to animate it. So what we can do is click on our 3D switch because we want to animate it, well, just like this one. We want to animate it coming from behind the camera and flying out into view and then collapsing. So what we can do is we need to make it 3D by clicking this switch. If you can't see it, there's a toggle switches modes button at the bottom. You just click that or hit F4 on the keyboard. I'm going to make it 3D by clicking right here, and then now it brings up my little controller, and I have Z control, X control, and Y control. Okay, and if I hit P, the letter P, on the keyboard, that brings up my position. And you know, instead of using the controller, I can always just click and drag the numbers as well. What I want to do is I want to turn on my stopwatch with my timer at 0, my cursor at 0, turn on the stopwatch, and that creates a keyframe, and we'll go forward to 1.15. All I did was click on this and then type in the go-to time I wanted. Or you can just drag your cursor over to 1.15, so 1.5 seconds. Set another keyframe for right there. Come back to the beginning here. I know I did this a little backwards. Basically, you want this first keyframe to be in front of the camera. Say at about -1000. And then bring the Y up so it comes from right above the camera. Just like that. So now it comes out, stops where we want it, and then we want to go another 1.5 seconds, so 3 seconds, and we want it to drop back to about +1000. Okay, so now if we do a little RAM preview, it comes in and it fades off in the distance. Comes in, fades back, and at that point we kind of want it to fade out and disappear. So it'll come to here, and then we want it to just disappear right at that point. So what we can do is hold down Shift and hit T to bring up opacity. P is for precision. I don't know why they chose T for opacity. I'm guessing transparency. That's all I can figure. But bring up your opacity. We'll turn on our stopwatch, and we want it to be at 100% back a little earlier, so we'll just click and drag the keyframe over. And then with our cursor still in that same spot, drop this down to 0. So now, do another RAM preview here. It'll come down, fade back, and fade away. Oops. Come down, drops back, fades away. Simple, simple, simple. And I'll just trim my composition here. I don't need that. Okay, so our base animation is set up. Everything we do from here is going to use the same animation. What we need to do is we need to set up a separate layer for the stretch effect that you see. So with our base text selected, we'll go Control D to duplicate the layer, and we'll rename this, I guess, Stretch. And to this layer, what we're going to do is we want them, if we highlight both of them, hold down Shift and highlight them, and hit T, that brings up our opacity. And hold down Shift and hit P, so we have our keyframes there. Right at the point where it comes from flying in to falling back, right around this keyframe right here, we want one layer to fade in while the other fades out. So we want to start with the stretch and then end with the base text. Easy to do that. All we've got to do is set up, if we highlight both of them, actually we can do them independently. What we want is we want the stretch to start off right here. And if we click right here, it'll create a new keyframe at the current value. So we'll click there, and now we have a new keyframe at 100%, and we want it to fade out. So we'll go a little bit forward, a few frames forward, fade it out, and then if we go back to the same point, and for the base text, do the same thing, click the stopwatch, but this time start it out at 0%, go forward to this a few frames, and then kick it up to 100. Now, what we've got is one fades in, the other fades out. So a nice little crossfade. The base text is only going to be used to kind of speed up our renders. So once the echo effect, I gave it away, echo effect. Once the stretch stretches down to where it's going straight backwards, then we'll fade it out so we don't have to worry about the echo effect and rendering that effect again. Little trick helps and makes a better image. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble, so let's move on because it's late at night and I have movies to watch in the other room. So if I start to rush, I apologize. With our stretch layer selected, we're going to go Effect, Time, Echo, and it might be off your screen, but it's there, Echo. So we've got our Echo, and we've got a few different. If you notice, when I applied the echo effect, nothing really happened. if I go back in time here, you can see that it really just created an extra layer. And that's all the echo effect does. What we're going to do is set it up to where those layers are so close together that you can't notice the distance between them, and then stack hundreds of them on top of each other to give that illusion of a stretch. But all it is separating layers based on time. And this is the time differential. So the smaller the time, the closer they are together. What we want is something really, really close together. We want 0.004. And that puts them where you really can't even tell that they're separate. I'm going to skip number of echoes for a second because that's the render intensive part. And our starting intensity seems self-explanatory. It's how intense the effect is at the start. We're going to set that down to 0.35. And then we're going to set the decay, which is how it trails off, to 0.99, which that's just my personal preference. And we'll change the echo operator from add to screen, and that just gives a little bit more color around the edges, a little more brightness around the edges on it, and helps sell the effect a little bit better. Now, number of echoes. This is something we're going to have to keyframe as well, so what we're going to do is highlight both layers, hit U on the keyboard. U brings up all your keyframes. So now we can see all our keyframes, and we know that our effect starts off with that stretch that stretches in, and then right at this point where it cross dissolves between our stretch and our base layer, that's the point where we want our echo to fade out. So that's where we want our keyframes. So what we're going to do, just to save render time, you will see when you go through it, I'm going to turn off the FX button, so that way I can still manipulate this without it actually showing up on the screen and making me wait on renders. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the stopwatch for number of echoes, and if I hit U on my keyboard again, it'll add it to the stretch list keyframes, and I'm going to turn that up to 250. You can go more or less. The higher this number, the longer the stretch is. The shorter the number, the shorter the stretch is. So I'm going to set it, 250 seemed pretty good to me. You may want to go higher or you may want to go lower. That's up to you. Now, the faster your text moves, because your text starts off right off the top of the screen. It's right here where this red line is. The farther back you push your text, in other words, the greater the distance the text has to move in a shorter amount of time, the more numbers you're going to need here. So try not to put too many crazy moves, otherwise it can really screw things up. So I set a keyframe right here at 250, which you can't see yet because FX is turned off. I'm going to go forward to the end of this fade out right here, because remember this is my opacity, so it starts at 100 and goes to 0 right here. And right there I'm also going to fade out the number of echoes, 0. So it'll start at 250 and then fade out to 0, and at that point the base text takes over, which is just the legible part of the text where you can read the title before it fades out. Okay, now this part's going to take a while, but I'm going to go ahead and turn my FX button back on. And then we wait for a long time. Man, I feel like I should have brought my, oh, there we go. Never mind what I should have brought in here. As you can see, we've still got a little bit where you can see the gaps. Now that's easily fixed. In the previous tutorial, I said put a directional blur or radial fast blur on it. Don't really need that. All we got to do is turn on motion blur. Now this makes the render take forever and ever and ever and ever. But when it does finally finish, it's worth it. You'll see it'll blend in these little edges. It'll look a lot smoother, a lot more eye-pleasing, and we're done. Anytime now. Man. This actually brings up a good point. When you're doing these renders and you're having to wait forever, remember I said at the beginning it's good to have a hobby. Well, you know, just for, you know, you can go fishing like I do. I'm an avid fisherman. I love to go fishing. You know, take your buddy out, go fishing with him. Learn how to paint, or, you know, really suck at painting and give up. So you go back to fishing, and you can go fishing again, especially with a pretty lady. You know, more fishing. If you're doing a long opening title sequence, then you got plenty of time to take your family and go on a, Caribbean cruise for a week. Might be done. Or if you decide to sit and stare at the screen, this is what happens. You sit and stare at the screen too long waiting on a render, you become a zombie. And that's not good. So then it's time to get back to fishing. Alright, hold on. Enough goofing around. There it is. See, the edges are blurred in much better. It's much cleaner. Now, I would RAM preview this for you, but that's going to take forever. It'll probably take about 20 minutes to preview just this on my computer. The faster the computer you have, you got the, kick-ass 8-core processor, you'll be able to render this much faster than I will, but it's still going to take some time. So I don't know how many times I can drill that home, is be patient when you hit render. Otherwise, it's not even going to be worth it for you because you're just going to get aggravated. But anyway, as always, this is Chad Castleberry. Welcome to Firechild Entertainment. If you'd like any more information, check out the blog. Visit us at firechildpro.blogspot.com. Check us out. All kinds of good things are coming. Enjoy. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, hey, feel free to drop me a line. I'll do my best to answer. Look forward to hearing from you guys. You're the reason I do this, so enjoy, make the effect. I can't wait to see some